32. Berlow has another explanation for why antisocial acts committed as the result of hypnosis only seem to be contrary to will. There are many antisocial desires lying hidden in all people. The hypnotic technique, if cleverly enough applied, can bring them to the surface and cause them to be acted out in life. Hypnotherapists tend to claim that it is impossible to force the unconscious will to yield up information that it's not ready to give. The aim of therapy, of course, being to reach what is buried in the unconscious mind and which may be the cause of some manifested problem, such as a phobia or anxiety, panics. It is, however, known and accepted that a hypnotist, by distorting a person's reality, can make him act contrary to his normal moral or social codes. For instance, it could be possible to induce a person to walk. It would be possible to induce a person to walk out naked in a room filled with people, that if that person had first been made to believe that the room was empty. Field and Dworkin published an article in the Journal of Psychiatry, showing that it is by no means an easy thing to induce subjects by hypnosis to reveal what they do not wish to reveal during interrogation. The subjects were given information that they were told not to disclose under any circumstances. Then they were hypnotized and told that their guilt at lying would make them tell the truth, or that they would reveal themselves by making strong involuntary movement after a lie, which the lie detector would detect. The test required the subjects to think of a number, and then try to prevent the experimenter from guessing it as he counted down. Only 6 out of the 26 subjects revealed their number, either through guilt or through an involuntary jerk, as it was spoken. 4 times the revelation was forced by the lie detector test. Only twice did the guilt method extract the correct number. The authors concluded that only highly hypnotizable subjects could be made to crack under hypnosis, although it could be objected that there would be considerably less emotional investment in keeping an arbitrary number concealed than some more personal piece of information. Finally, it's worth reiterating, as Biederman does, that there is yet another factor that could be crucial to the success of hypnotic techniques, regardless of whether role-playing, conditioning, imagination, or report is involved. If people believe that when they are hypnotized they are not in control of their actions, they may well be ready to abdicate responsibility for what they do. So, if, as in That Bad Place, a prisoner felt he was no longer master of his fate, he might be induced under hypnosis to reveal information he would never normally give, because, in that situation, he could feel justified in attaching no blame to his actions. More has been said of the power of belief in Chapter 6. Suffice to say here that hypnosis, far from being some simple, easy to define, universally agreed on state, seems likely to be linked with any one of a number of disparate desperate? I don't know. Personality and behavioral traits, just as seems to be the case with brainwashing. It will be seen that those very traits play a significant part in other types of attitudes, influence, and so-called brainwashing process itself. Now we are on to Chapter 8. Chapter 8. I have notes in here. Okay, but they're probably just nothing. Sudden conversion. One is rarely accused of being brainwashed if, after a lifetime of antagonism or political inertia, one suddenly embraces Catholicism or joins the Labour Party. However, if one's new allegiance involves contravention of all conventional morality or diversion from societal norms, it is questioned whether it could have been adopted of free will. So, one may choose to become a Catholic, but the Moonies choose you. That the latter choice merely represents a more vivid influence of the kinds of psychological forces so far discussed is rarely considered. But the conversion process could be broken down into its component parts in much the same way as the experts dissected the brainwashing experience of that bad place. In the course of this chapter, 3 recent celebrated cases of conversion, all of which led to court cases where the word brainwashing was bandied freely by either the prosecution or the defense, will be used to illustrate the ingredients of religious and political conversion. Many of those ingredients have been highlighted by various authors. Zimbardo, in Influencing Attitudes and Changing Behavior, establishes 4 influencing events to pay attention to in the context of sudden religious conversions. First, a close personal relationship needs to be developed with the people one wishes to convert to one's own position. It is human to respond to the offer of caring from another individual. To respond, especially if affection-starved or disoriented, to the tempting welcome into the bosom of a strong and loving family. Second, the arousal of emotion by the leader, whether by emotional speeches, rhythmic music, or dancing, serves to stir up troubling deep guilt and fear feelings in the audience, which can be relieved quickly by submission to the cause. Third, by responding to the appeal to come forward, to make promises, or to speak out and be counted, people can be coaxed to commit themselves by actions which may then, as has been shown, color their consequent attitudes. Consequent attitudes. Last, says Zimbardo, comes the powerful influence of prayer. The act of prayer may serve many purposes in this context. It binds the group, acts as a reminder of the initial emotions experienced during the conversion itself, reinforces belief, and, by focusing on the supernatural force to bring good or evil, serves to place an individual's total responsibility for his actions outside of himself. Prayer can bring peace, just as confession for Dr. Vincent brought relief from all the aroused guilt, uncertainty, and identity confusion he experienced in his bad place prison. Whatever else may exist in the essence of prayer, prayer as a form is an effective instrument for manipulation. Sargent has seen evangelical-type conversion as a prime example of what can happen when the brain reaches overload and succumbs to a whole bunch of stress, a whole bunch of mounting and crashing stress. At the sermons of Wesley, for instance, it was a regular occurrence for people to collapse as a mass hysteria mounted, and to rise saved. Wesley's hellfire speeches aroused the whole gamut of emotions in his audience, from guilt and fear to anger and indignation. It is irrelevant which. The result was physical collapse and an ensuing state of suggestibility, which led to instant conversion. Sargent has a logical starting point for his discussions. Blech. I guess this will be my last one. Speed run fun. Methods of religious conversion have hitherto been considered. This is Sargent speaking, and I don't feel like doing Sargent's voice. Methods of religious conversion have hitherto been considered more from psychological and metaphysical angles than from physiological and physical ones. But techniques employed often approximate so closely to modern political techniques of brainwashing and thought control
that each throws a light on the mechanics of the other. Almost identical physiological and psychological phenomenon may result from religious healing methods and conversion techniques, equally in the most primitive and the more highly civilized cultures. They may be adduced as convincing proofs of the truth of whatever religion or philosophic beliefs are evoked. But since those beliefs are often logically irreconcilable with each other, and since the similarity of the psychological and the physiological phenomena produced by their invocation are all that they may have in common, we find ourselves confronted with a mechanistic principle deserving the utmost examination. From Battle for the Mind. Sargent may be alone in stressing the physiological side of conversion, but many authors support the importance of psychological factors in the conversion syndrome. Eric Hoffer, in The True Believer, makes the case that frustration is the key to understanding the sudden embrace of rigid belief. Starting out from the fact that the frustrated predominate among the early adherents of all mass movements and that they usually join of their own accord, it is assumed that an effective technique of conversion consists basically in the inculcation and fixation of proclivities and responses indigenous to the frustrated mind. Those who would transform a nation or the world cannot do so by breeding and captivating discontent, or by coercing people into a new way of life. They must know how to kindle and fan an extravagant hope. He explains why, in his view, faith offers so much to the frustrated. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for lost faith in ourselves. The less justified a man is in claiming excellence for his own self, the more ready he is to claim all excellence for his nation, his religion, his race, or his holy cause. Hoffer has mentioned, as quoted above, that the successful manipulator for a mass movement must play on those elements that are indigenous to the frustrated mind. He peruses that theme. Are the frustrated more easily indoctrinated than the non-frustrated? There is apparently some connection between dissatisfaction with oneself and a proneness to credulity. The urge to escape our real life is also an urge to escape the rational and the obvious. The refusal to see ourselves as we are develops a distaste for facts and cold logic. Hey, we read this one before. There is no hope for the frustrated in the actual and possible. Salvation can come to them only from the miraculous. They ask to be deceived. Effective propaganda, then, cannot be forced on a closed mind. It can only work on a mind or on what is already within. Rather than impose new opinions, propaganda works as if it articulates forcefully and graphically nebulous passions and fears and resentments that are constantly simmering below the consciousness. Whereas Sargent's version of events, with the accent on the physiological, allows the implantation of any ideas, however alien. Hoffer believes the seeds for fervent belief must have already been long sown. He names the family as a major threat to the success of all mass movements. It is possible to love one's family above all, and also to love one's movement above all. Even for Christianity, Hoffer says, the family is a threat because strong family ties are inconsistent with the concept of brotherly love for one and all. Therefore, all mass movements, including Christianity, have to aim to disrupt family ties. In the Western world,
where family links are already weakened by economic factors, including economic independence, which allows women to contemplate divorce. Children will go far from home. The result has indeed been growth of a collective rather than a family spirit, says Hoffer. If the family has become less potent force in Western industrial society, it has experienced an emotional renaissance recently, much nursed by the media, with the event of a new religious cults imputed with the sinister intent of breaking up the family. It is because of these same cults that the word brainwashing has experienced a similar renaissance. Possibly because the cults are new and therefore facilitate a focusing of attention, which is more difficult to sustain in cases of long-established institutions, which may, in fact, operate in similar means. It is worth, therefore, looking closely at the operative elements of modern-day religious cults. Edward Shiles, in an article called Authoritarianism, Right and Left, has analyzed the features that were common to the blank and blank systems. As it has already been suggested that all mass movements are interchangeable, it is to be seen, however, whether these also apply to religious cults. And they are: 1. In-group inclusiveness and hostility to all outside of it. 2. Demand for total submissiveness to the in-group, which alone can bring about good. 3. The categorization of people according to a selected characteristics and making overall judgments on the basis of these. Red scum, imperialist bastard, colonialist, capitalist. 4. Promotion of the idea that the world is a scene of unceasing conflict as a result of class war, or racism, white privilege. 5. The view that any tendencies for family bonds or toleration of enemies serves only to weaken the in-group in its struggle to dilute commitment. 6. Belief in hostile conspiratorial forces whose aim is to destroy the in-group. Survival may therefore require violence. Well, we don't see any of that. 7. Belief in a wholly harmonious society which can only be created by the in-group. Cults. In March 1981, an English High Court jury decided that the Mooney cult does brainwash people after hearing an action brought against the cult by the cult against the Daily Mail for making untrue accusations about it. The jury heard much evidence about the nature of the cult, much of which is known to apply to others of similar ilk. The Mooney cult may therefore serve as an initial illustration of cult consciousness. According to Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the leader of the Unification Church, whose followers are colloquially known as the Moonies, God's intent was that Adam and Eve should marry and have perfect children. But Satan ruined things. Jesus failed to redeem things, and it was now Moon's mission as a prophet to bring the world the message of truth. The Moonies' role is to bring the world to Reverend Moon. Mooney converts entrusted with the task to take to the streets and give out leaflets or sell wares and encourage likely-looking recruits to come to a weekend retreat to learn about what Moon has to offer. Sometimes it is not even made clear that the retreat is a Mooney venture, just a social gathering where the unsuspecting victim can meet like-minded people. There are many accounts of what goes on at the introductory weekends. Margaret Hyde described the process in Brainwashing and Other Forms of Mind Control. Friday night, when the workshop retreat started, there would be a simple dinner, followed by the singing of hymns and playing of games and praying. Next day, Everyone had to get up early because every minute of the day was already programmed. The singing of hymns, chanting of prayers, and performing of exercises were all packed in before breakfast. Then came more hymns and a lecture, another hymn and another lecture, on the sins of the world and how Moon and his family had rejected Satan. More hymns, praying, lectures, simple games, and throughout a great emphasis on the family's affection for all the members and the strong group spirit. Those who were already Moonies, the brothers and sisters, would demonstrate utter devotion to the group and strong will to conform to all that's required of them. I'm going to stop in just 5 seconds. One recruit is quoted as saying, "If you find yourself enjoying the feeling that you're accepted by the family, even wanted desperately by them, the prayers to save you are fervent."